Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of League Chat with the Stat. I'm your host, Stat, and can I just say it's good to be back for another week talking all things NRL. Now, let me tell you, round 10 was a very interesting round. A lot of very close games and a lot of blowouts as well. So, look, just before we get started on tonight's episode, just want to, on behalf of the team of League Chat with the Stat, just want to send our condolences to the Isako family. Brisbane winger Jermaine Isako lost his father this week in his battle with cancer. So just sending our condolences to the family and to Jermaine. Just letting you know that we're praying for you, mate, and we are thankful for your service to the game so far. You've been a very good athlete, and we're just praying that God come with you and your family at this time. So look, let's get straight into what was round 10, and let's just discuss the NRL ladder first things first, as a new thing we've started to do for the last few weeks. Now, there's been a couple changes, so it's good to just run through those. Now, on top, coming first is the Panthers on 17 points. They've overtaken the Eels, which now sit second due to their loss to Manly on 16. Tied with Storm on 16 as well. And Knights on 13, which caps off the top four for the week. Now, sitting just outside the top four is the Roosters on 12 points with the Raiders. Due to the points differential that the Roosters are sitting on top of the Raiders there. And the last two spots, 7th and 8th, are Tigers and Rabbitohs, sitting on 10 points. Now to the bottom half, you got the Sharks and the Seagulls also on 10 points, sitting at 9th and 10th. Dragons move up to 11th on 8 points. The Cowboys, the Warriors, Broncos, and the Titans all still remain together on 6 points. And the mighty Canterbury Bankstown Bulldogs sit on 2 points. So that is the latest of the NRL ladder for this week. Now, let's just discuss the performances from all the sides this week and discuss everything round 10. So the Raiders 24 defeating the Roosters 20 at the SCG this week. And, mate, can I say that was a mighty performance from the Raiders? They really, really lifted this week. They've had a lot of people missing in a lot of key positions. They've had a lot of forwards missing. They've had Josh Hodgson go down last week. And they played fantastic. I thought the forwards were the highlight for me. Josh Papali, he's just really carrying the load there, and he's just doing so well and getting over 200 metres every week and scoring that try. It was such a soft try as well. And Dynamis Lou was phenomenal as well. I think he had about 30 runs and 110, 120 odd metres as well. And Joseph Tarpanek came off the bench this game and clocked up 194 metres off like 15 hit-ups. So the forwards really, really played well, and they laid the platform for George Williams to do this thing, and he has just proven himself to be a beast again. Now, and what I love about this is that George Williams isn't just performing against teams like the Titans, the Bulldogs, the Warriors, the Broncos. He's performing against teams like the Roosters, like he did on Thursday night, to Melbourne. All these teams that he's just performing at such a very good level on a consistent basis. And the Raiders are starting to really find themselves. I know they're still missing a lot of players, and over time, players will start to come back. But George Williams is doing such a good thing for them, and Ricky Stewart must be laughing about this signing. So it's a very good start for them. Now, the Roosters had a bit of an off night. Now, they did have too many errors, but you could still see that the forwards still clocked, all their forwards clocked over 100 metres. So the platform, they laid the platform. There's just so many errors. Like, they led their account 14-7. It's not a really typical Rooster side. Now, there's a few things I want to say about this game. Could be controversial, but in terms of defensively, that was one of the worst I've seen from James Tedesco. It was a very, very poor effort from him defensively this week. Now, I know it's probably the first time we've seen that in many years, but the Roosters' defense as a whole wasn't great. Like, watching Josh Papali's try and the way he just went through that gap. Mitch Orbison stopped, Lindsay Collins stopped, and Tedesco wasn't expecting it to happen. He went and tried to chase him through, but it was too late. Papali was already there. But I just found that Tedesco defensively got found out a couple of times, and he wasn't as committed to the play like he usually is on each of the plays. I found him a bit quieter in terms of defense, and don't get me wrong, he still clocked like 8 tackle breaks and made a line break and clocked over 190 metres, but in terms of defensively, he wasn't fantastic, and so I'm sure that he'd be able to look to rectify that this week against the Warriors. But on that game, look, you got to give it to the Raiders. They were fantastic. They put up a very, very good performance, and they did deserve that win, and they grinded, which I really loved about that as well. Now, the Storm defeating the Titans 42 points to 6, and you just see Melbourne, they dominated in almost every area of that game. Now, Cameron Smith, he just gets better and better every week, doesn't he? He's just an exceptional talent, and having him play with Cameron Munster, who's just returned from that injury, and he just gave him the biggest boost as well. You know, they were playing really well without him, and they've added him in, and now he's just killing it again. And the forwards laid the platform once again for the backs to do their thing, and they were all fantastic. They played like a very, very good unit. And Melbourne have been doing it for ages, and it just came at the cost of the Titans. Now, the Titans had too many missed tackles, and they never did enough to lay that platform for the Titans to do anything with their backs. The halves couldn't get to work. Fotuaika was the only forward that ran over 100 metres. And that's a worrying sign. Now, what I'm liking the fact is that the Titans will, as I said last week, they'll start to get forwards coming in over the course of the next few years. But right now, the forwards that they have aren't aiming up. Not one forward, apart from Fotuaika, scored over 100 running metres. And it's a bad thing, to be honest. It's not great, especially for the Titans. And I think one performance that really caught my eye was Keegan Hipgrave. Now, I'm not sure what's going on. I don't know if he's playing through injury. I know he busted his shoulder the week before, but he got named again, and he played at 80 minutes. But in that 80 minutes, he made 2 errors. He missed 12 tackles. He made 3 runs for 28 metres in an 80-minute performance. Please tell me he's injured, because if he's not injured and he came up with a performance like that, that is just garbage. That is not good enough. That is definitely not an NRL standard. So I'm not sure what's going to happen there. I'm sure that they're going to have to look into some way to get their players firing and fitter and healthy. But look, Keegan Hipgrave must have had to be playing with some sort of injury, or he dished that out in 80 minutes and that was just not good enough. So the Titans have a lot of work to do, and week in, week out, they keep copying all these injuries, but they're just not having a great run with luck at the moment. So, but look, moving on to the next game, and Tigers 48, defeating the Broncos 0. This one puts a big smile on my face. And look, this one is it's a story of 2 coaches, Michael Maguire, Anthony Seibold. Anthony Seibold, who his team has not been performing all year. They've been playing rubbish all year. They celebrate 1 win against us Bulldogs, and they carry on like it's, like if they've won the grand final. And they've just been garbage, and the coach doesn't make any changes. Not willing to take risks and make changes in key positions. Well, Michael Maguire doesn't care if you've played 350 games, doesn't care if you've played 1 game, doesn't care if you've made every NRL accolade, done everything in the game. If you're not good enough, he'll drop you. And he's proven that over the last few weeks. Now, the Tigers, you can't put it past them. They were phenomenal. Benji Marshall and Billy Walters were fantastic. Having Luke Brooks come off the bench was great as well. The forwards really laid the platform. And look, Harry Grant, week by week, really, really killing it again and just proving himself to be one of the top hookers in the game. In his first season of first grade. And I'm telling you that for all those Tigers fans out there, I can tell you now, I don't think they would have wanted him on a loan. They would have wanted him on a 5, 6, 7 year deal. Because he's just playing fantastic football at the moment. But one player that's been doing really well and has only started to become noticed recently is David Norfoluma. He's destroying the competition at the moment. He's making line breaks, scoring tries, putting up big numbers in stats every week, and especially when they are deep in their territory, making some really pivotal meters for them to get out of their zone and get into the opposition's try line. And I thought he's been fantastic. I thought it was great on Friday night. I thought the Tigers team as a whole were great on Friday night. To keep Broncos to 0 is a fantastic effort. I don't want to say that it was too hard for them, but at the same time, I'm sure Michael Maguire would have been stoked that they kept him to 0. I know I would have been stoked. I mean, if I was coaching the Tigers and won 48 and then Brisbane scored a try, I'd be fuming. I wouldn't let it happen. I'd be losing my mind. But it's a tale of 2 coaches where Maguire will make the changes. He doesn't care who you are. Doesn't care about your rap sheet. While you've got Seibold, who is stubborn and isn't willing to make those changes. And we saw. And for the Broncos, I mean, I really knew where do I start, but I just pick up from the week before. Tavita Pangai Jr. and Payne Haas, they lead from the front. They do their job. Unfortunately, it's not enough. Because their halves are rubbish. There's no effort. There's no care, and there's no communication. The halves, and I talk about this every week, and they've decided to make some changes this week, which we'll get into later, but Anthony Milford, nothing special. Brodie Croft is probably becoming the worst buy of the season. I mean, there's no communication in defence. When Billy Walters pulled that trial for Luciano Leilua, There was no communication in defence. Kenner looked at Croft. Croft looking at Kenner. Then when they're all huddled up behind the post, no one's talking to each other. There's no care. And no one's communicating. There's no talk in defence. There's no talk saying, okay, let's get this. I'll cover this man. You cover that man. There's nothing out there. Words coming to me that there's no respect for the coach. And it's very clear. I mean, they're doing nothing about these problems. I know they had a board meeting today at their financial meetings, and they know that next year is going to be a massive loss, and this year's been a massive loss already because of how pathetic they're going on the field. On the field, they're garbage. To be honest, I don't know how they've won 3 games this year. And it still baffles me how the team of the first 2 rounds before COVID, who were 2-0 and were riding high, come back from COVID and have just been shocking. Okay, yeah, they've lost 15 players of their 30-man squad or 36-man squad, but those players in those pivotal positions aren't doing well. And there's no care to make any changes. There's no care to changing things up, at least. Only up until this week, where Darius Boyd came out and said, we need to make changes. Dan Lockyer came out and said, we need to make changes. Gordon Tallis. All these players saying, why aren't changes being made? They need to make changes. And people like Brent Tate coming out saying there's no pride in the jersey. Yeah, absolutely. That's the second time this year they've been held to 0. So, look, mate, full credit to the Tigers. They were outstanding. And look, I want to see Tigers build off that. And when they verse Parry this week, which should be a mighty Thursday night game. For the Broncos, the season's an absolute write-off. And part of me thinks that it's between Brisbane and Warriors for the wooden spoon this year. I genuinely believe that Bulldogs will win a few more games. And Brisbane could definitely take out that spoon. They've got the second worst for and against total on minus 146. Titans are minus 148. And with the caliber of the players in the Broncos to the caliber of the players they have at the Titans, it's really embarrassing. So, it's just another week, another loss for the Broncos, I guess. So, but look, moving on. Dragons 28 defeating the Bulldogs 22. And the Dragons got off to a very, very quick start. You know, scoring off the first set. I mean, Zach Lomax's catch was fantastic. And what I loved about Duffy is that he's that supportive fullback. He's always there in the play. He's always making sure he's around them, like just in case there's a potential chance for an offload to make that line break, which I really loved. And he was there to support him, and he did fantastic. And look, Ben Hunt, another great performance from him. 53 tackles, no missed tackles. His vision is at hooker, which I said last week, is just phenomenal, and he proved it again this week with McInnes at 13 playing solid as well. And as I said, Lomax and Duffy really, really killing it again this week. And once you see the Dragons scoring some more points, they're obviously out of the limelight now. But it was only the last time they played the Bulldogs, they were on the verge of sacking McGregor. So it's very interesting that they've turned it all around. They're starting to play some better footy. Now, the Bulldogs, yeah, they played a bit better, but I don't want to take that as a good thing. We should have won that game. It's not good enough. And now I'm going to say something here a little controversial. And I'm probably going to get a lot of backlash for this, but I couldn't care less. While Lachlan Lewis was very good for us defensively, I genuinely think he lost that game for us. His inexperience in the halves with the last tackle options were not good enough. Now, what blew my mind was that, yeah, we did lose Kieran Foran to that toe injury, and I loved how the Bulldogs played in that first half with Nick Meaney at fullback. Looked a lot better. We looked a lot better with Nick Meaney at fullback than DWZ did at fullback. And DWZ played well on the wing. He was great without being terrible. He was solid without being bad, and I like that. But when Kieran Foran got off, we had the game at 22-10. We had that game wrapped up. And Lachlan Lewis, as I said, defensively was fantastic. He saved a lot of tries for us. I'll give him that. But it's just because of his inexperience. He kept putting crossfield kicks when we got to the Dragons line to Jason Saab. The guy's 2 meters tall. Why are we kicking to his wing? I sat there blown out of my mind, like absolutely thinking, what is going on here? And I didn't understand. I mean, why aren't we putting grubbers in to get the repeat sets? To maybe get another penalty, maybe to get a field goal. Even score another try. One more try, we would have stuffed them up. One more field goal, one more penalty, something. But it was inexperience. And I know the players were spewing, and that cutout ball, with a minute to go, 30 meters out, people are going to sit here and blame Marcelo Montoya, which I will. Like, it wasn't great, but he got smacked 2 tackles before, and I don't think he was expecting a Lachlan Lewis cutout ball. I really don't. And it bounced off his knee, and you couldn't write it. Like, you couldn't picture it going any crazier than it did with Norman running 40 metres untouched to score to win the game. Like, we had that game wrapped up, and our inexperience costed us. So, look, we need to be better, and we need to be making smarter decisions in our last tackle options. Again, it was a lot better than what we've dished out in previous weeks, but we didn't win, and it's still not good enough. Now, the Newcastle Knights 20 defeating the Rabbitohs 18, and this was a crazy good game. Knights shot off straight to a 20-0 lead. I thought Callum Ponga was a lot better. You could tell straight away he got a lot more involved and brought in Bradman Best, who got more involved as well. And Kurt Mann, week by week, has been fantastic. He's playing so much better week in, week out, just doing his part for the team, and he has been phenomenal. What Adam O'Brien's done with him this year has been second to none. It's been fantastic to see. And one return for me that I loved seeing was Mitchell Barnett. I love Mitch Barnett. I've always loved him as a player, and for the last few years has been phenomenal for the Knights. And I thought his return from the back injury this week was what they needed. Was that grunt in defense and that those hard runs in attack. So that was very good for me. That I saw that, I loved that. But Knights played well for 60-odd minutes. The Rabbitohs played garbage for 60-odd minutes. And to lose James Roberts to that torn pec for the rest of the season and Ethan Lowe to that neck issue for the rest of the season as well wouldn't help. But, I mean, the Rabbitohs, they just couldn't handle Newcastle's fast start. And they got off to a blistering lead. You know, Bowman Pest put on for Tuala to score, that beautiful cutout, short ball, the short ball, straight to Tuala to score. I thought it was great. Halves were working well together, forwards dominating once again. But then Rabbitohs, in the last 15 minutes, where was that all 8 minutes? Damien Cook scoring 2 tries, and he really exploded in those last 15 minutes. But unfortunately, it was too little too late. You know, you can't win games in the last 15 minutes if you're down 20-0. So credit to the Knights. They did start a lot better, and they played well for 60-odd minutes, but the Rabbitohs, they need to be picking up. I'm sure Bennett would be fuming. Like, it's not good enough. And especially with the caliber of players that they have at the Rabbitohs, I actually thought they would have beaten the Knights. But the Knights are just proving everyone wrong right now, and it's very good to see and very good to witness at the moment. So, but look, yeah, so full credit to the Knights there. They took that game away, and the Rabbitohs couldn't do anything about it, which was interesting. But look, moving on, we'll go to the Seagulls, 22 defeating the Eels 18, and similar to the Knights and Rabbitohs game, Seagulls blew up to a 22-6 halftime lead. You know, it was fantastic. I mean, Daly Cherry Evans played so much better than he did last week. So much better. Marty Tapau, he scored a try in the first 3 minutes. He was leading from the front, and again, without Adam Fanua-Blake, just showing these young kids what it means to be as a top prop in the NRL. And that was good to see, but Jake Trbojevic, mate, I would love him at the Bulldogs. My goodness, he would be so beneficial for any club. I watched it over and over that at halftime, he was yelling at the players like they were down 40-0. Now, I don't know what he was yelling about, but the passion is there. For him, it's a brand new half. I mean, for him, it's a brand new game. The way he was yelling and getting these boys fired up to see and say, listen, we are versing the team that's coming first at the moment. Let's not be complacent. Let's work harder than we've worked hard in the first half. Let's work harder. Let's be smarter. Let's be better. And yeah, they hung on by a thread and won 22-18. Probably wasn't the second half performance that they wanted, but they led that platform in the first half an hour. And the Eels, man, they had a slow start. And yeah, look, they were missing a few players as well. I mean, losing Ryan Madison and Blake Ferguson on the eve of the game, plus having Mitchell Moses out, already that left edge is already affected as well. So it was good to see someone like Andrew Davey get his debut, 28 years old, and good to see him have a run out there and finally have his dream come true, which was fantastic to see. But look, they couldn't slow Manly down, and too many errors as well. I mean, they got the ball first set, George Jennings returning the kick, and then knocked it on straight away, which then led for Tapau to score. They didn't rebound from that. But look, it's a minor hiccup for the Eels. It's not something you've seen every week this year. This isn't a performance where you can start ripping them like you do with any of like the clubs that are at the moment that are performing this bad. But it is a hiccup, and Brad Arthur was absolutely fuming. And that's good. That's what they need. And look, they get a few players back this week. for the Tigers game. So that'll definitely prep them to have a better game. So we'll get onto that in a few moments' time. Now, the Sharks 46 defeating the Warriors 10. And, mate, ever since Cooper Cronk told Sean Johnson that he has been doing nothing since he's been at the Sharks, he's been fantastic. He has been so good. John Morris has got him just to simplify his game and play the game that benefits him. And he's been doing so well. I mean, Jesse Ramian was fantastic. I thought Toby Rudolph was his best game of the year. You know, he did so well at lock and played more minutes, but I still don't know how they won this game by making 40 missed tackles and 15 errors. We saw that last week against the Panthers. If they put up some similar numbers to last week, and they got pumped 56-24. This week, they've been in the Warriors, who aren't great, and they were shocking again on Saturday. But the Sharks just, imagine they didn't make those 15 errors. Imagine some of those went over the line. This game could have blown out to 60, 70 points. So the Sharks really need to fix those missed tackles and really need to fix those errors, because the last few weeks, it's been like almost 80-odd missed tackles and about 30, 40 errors. If they want to be contending for the top 8 and potentially the top 4, they need to be better, the Sharks. Now, the Warriors, man, like, my heart breaks, honestly, for Roger Tuivasa-Sheck. Man, that guy every week gives it his all. Clocks over 250 meters every week, sometimes over 300 meters. It was just a soft performance from the Warriors. Todd Payton put it as the worst performance of the season, and you could tell why. And, mate, poor RTS, honestly. You know, he left the Roosters, such a successful club, always winning comps, or always up there on the verge of winning comps, to go home to the Warriors to instill some of what he's learned, and unfortunately, it's not paying off at all. And with the Warriors losing 4 more players this week, heading back to New Zealand, it's only going to be tougher for the Warriors. So, they weren't good enough. It wasn't first-grade standard rugby league. They haven't been playing that most of the year anyway. And I don't know what these next 10 weeks will hold for them. I don't think they'll win many of these next 10 games. I think they'll be lucky to win 2, maybe 3. So, I think the Warriors are just counting down the days to go home, to be honest. And look, I don't blame them. But at the same time, this is still the NRL. And they're still getting paid quite decent money to do what they're doing at the moment. So, there needs to be better effort there. There needs to be more effort. Now, in the last game of the round, the Panthers 22 defeating the Cowboys 10, and Penrith now sit top of the table. They're getting better and better each week, with their forwards and their backs being fantastic. You know, Trent Barron has done such a wonderful job in the Penrith attack, and I've given him such a glowing endorsement for what they've done this year in attack. It's been amazing, with Coruscant, Cleary, Luai, and Edwards. It's been great. And then having Stephen Crichton scoring every week, and Josh Mansour laying down that foundation, similar to an Orphaluma, and looking at Brent Naden playing well as well. And it's just been good to see that the Panthers finally have the right variety to contend for the top, to contend for that title. And look, they're sitting top of the table at the moment. It's not a fluke. And Nathan Cleary, again, he is playing out of his skin right now. And another thing that amazes me as well is that if Origin was around the corner, he was my guaranteed number 7 before the season started. If this doesn't solidify, then I don't know what it will for some fans. He's playing fantastic. And I love that carbon copy of the try he scored against the Rabbitohs, how he used it against the Cowboys. Last few minutes, did the show and go, dummy, just went straight through, untouched. So, clearly dominated. Now, the Cowboys, they did play a lot better. They were winning 10-4. And look, having some big names not playing and being out, obviously shows a lot of inexperience. And they had a lot of missed tackles, again, a lot of errors. Just typical Cowboy fashion. But they did have some kids on debut who performed really well. I thought Hamilton Tabuai-Fidow, who's played a few games now, was fantastic. And I thought that they played a better game. And there was a lot more heart and a lot more willingness to actually put in more effort. But unfortunately, the Panthers were too good. And Cowboys will learn from that. They've got an inexperienced side at the moment with so many players missing. And they should be better for that. So, but look, as I said, we'll just have to see how it goes for the Cowboys. With obviously Paul Green moving on, which we'll just get to in a moment. But look, let's get straight into the news around the NRL world. And now the Sharks have re-signed COC for Talakai and Royce Hunt. Talakai has been re-signed for a year and Royce Hunt for 2 years, which gives them very good depth in their second rows. They've both been playing out of their skin this year, and they've both been fantastic acquisitions for the club. So it's good to see that. Now, as I mentioned earlier, David Fusutoa, Ken Momalo, Ignatius Parsi, and King Vini Yayawa after this game against the Roosters, will be heading back to New Zealand and will be ruled out for the season. They've decided to go home and leave the NRL bubble and be with their families. Fusatua in particular is about to have a baby, so he does need to be there with his heavily pregnant wife there. So those 4 players will be moving on back to New Zealand, and now the Warriors are trying to figure out in the next week and a half, 2 weeks, how they're going to fill up their whole squad. So it's going to be crazy, but there may be some relief. Not sure if you guys heard it today, but Toronto Wolfpack have pulled out for the 2020 season. What that means is that players that are signed to the Toronto Wolfpack in the Super League have the year off and have told those players that are there, such as Sonny Bill Williams, Josh McCrone, Burden Thompson, Chase Stanley, and Ricky Lutelli, and Darcy Lussick as well, players that we are familiar with in the NRL, that they can go back to the NRL or the Super League and play out the year at whichever club they need to play out for to get some football under their belt, but then to be expected to rock up next year for the 2021 season. So I believe the Warriors would go hard after a few of those players, maybe even Chase Stanley, Ricky Lutelli, when they're losing, Fusatua, and they're losing David and Kemal Malo as well. So it's going to be interesting to see what they do here. Now, Corey Haruo-Naera, as I said last week, is going to be convinced to stay with the Bulldogs. He's having a lot of trying times at the moment, just with the fact how everything was handled by the club. So with Trent Barrett going to be officially appointed very soon, what that will mean is that he will sit down with Corey Haruo-Naera, who he coached in the Penrith lower grades, to probably just convince him to stay with the Bulldogs. But look, Raiders, Tigers, Warriors, and Dragons are really chasing hard for him. So it's just going to be interesting to see how that plays out. Now, Ben and Shane Walker had been interviewed for the Warriors coaching job. Now, as far as Cameron George was concerned, the Warriors CEO, he was very impressed with the interview and very impressed with what he saw and what they wanted to do for the Warriors. Now, nothing's been official. Nothing has been put down as confirmed, but it looks to be an interesting acquisition if they do go down that route. Now, I know that Ben and Shane Walker are very successful businessmen at the moment, and I believe that they'll just want to go down and show the Warriors show all the NRL what they can do as for their coaching credentials. Now, it would be good for them to, I would think it'd be good to take a punt on these guys, maybe for the first 12 months, just to see how they'll go. We saw them do well for the Jets in the Queensland Cup side a few years back, won in the grand final with some unorthodox attack, and it worked for them. So they've the last few years been trying to find a gig in the NRL, and this could potentially be it. So, but look, Warriors are linked to, at the moment, they want to keep Todd Payton on, but they're looking at every other coach. Paul Green, as part of the news as well, has actually parted ways with the Cowboys. So now he's been made available to a lot of the clubs that need a coach. After 7 years, I mean, he's won World Club challenges, won a grand final, won Coach of the Year as well. So in the 7 years, he's been pretty successful, Paul Green. He's had a rough year this year and even towards a bit last year. But look, all the best to him. I do believe that Brisbane are going to be knocking on his door shortly to get him to replace Seabold eventually. So he's not a terrible coach. He's had a pretty successful run at coach. He's a 52% winning percentage. So he'll be good for that. Now, the Bulldogs have offered Foran $200,000 to stay with the club. As I said, he wants to play out the year and try to find himself worth maybe $300,000 to $400,000. It's going to be a massive price drop anyway from the $1 million he's earning at the moment. But he wants to stay with the club, wants to see which direction he's heading in, and wants to be part of the good times. So it's good to see that from Foran. Now, the Bulldogs are awaiting official confirmation, have signed Canberra winger Nick Kotrick on a $1.8 million deal for 3 years. That'll bring him to the club, and that'll have him playing centre in the position that he wants to play. So, not sure if Trent Barrett had anything to do with that, which we're also waiting to hear official confirmation that he signed the 3-year deal today. But we are waiting to hear from the Bulldogs and to hear about the official confirmation there. Now, Tim Glasby, the former Melbourne lock and current Knights lock, is potentially on the verge of retiring due to a series of concussions that he's had over the last 3 or 4 months. Now, he's had back-to-back concussions recently, which is why he hasn't been playing for the Knights. And he's really concerned about his well-being, and he's really concerned that he will continue playing and have more concussions. So there's a potential chance he may be medically retired. We are yet to hear anything as of yet, but we just need to see what's going to happen. Now, the Sharks have re-signed the Howard Matthews Cup captain Siteni Tokamo for 4 years. A rising star coming through the ranks. He's been signed for the next 4 years at the Sharks, so it's good to see that. The Bulldogs have confirmed the signature of Tim Laffey to the end of the 2020 season. So Tim Laffey will have about 9 or 10 games to prove himself, to turn his form around, to earn a new contract, whether it be at the Bulldogs or any other club. Now, former Cowboys hooker Aaron Payne has signed on as an assistant coach for the Cowboys to cover the loss of Paul Green. Now, with Paul Green obviously stepping down, Josh Hannay will be the main full-time coach and caretaker coach for the remaining 2020 season. Now, there has been preliminary talks with Anthony Griffin to potentially take over the Cowboys, which would be a good coach for them. Josh McCrone wants to have a gig as well, so they want to suss out him the next maybe 9 to 10 weeks, just to see how he goes and see if they get a good winning percentage. Maybe have him as a coach for the next few years. Now, a little while ago, I spoke to you guys about Joseph Suwali, a 16-year-old kid who is a freak of nature. He was going to sign a deal with South Sydney for $1.7 million over 3 years. Now, breaking news today has come out that because he won't be able to make his debut at the age of 18, he would have had to pay reserve grade for another 2 years. And they would have had to get the contract solidified by the 1st of August. Now, Rugby Union have come in, and it looks like he's going to stick with Union. They have offered him $1 million a season for the next 3 years. So it's a $3 million contract for the next 3 years for a 16-year-old, and it's big money. I know that there are some Wallabies players that are slamming the decision to pay the kid $1 million a year, especially when there are players who have signed for Union, such as Suliasi Vunivalu, who isn't confirmed to potentially getting his contract at the Reds. They've chucked on so much money at this kid to keep him in their code, and at the age of 16, he's going to be earning $1 million per season, which is about $20K a week. So, look, I don't like that. I understand he's 16 years old, and to be on such ridiculous money of $1 million a season at the age of 16 is just mind-blowing, to say the least. And I don't see how it can benefit them, because, as I said, you sign a player on $1 million a year, there could be so many injuries, he could have to medically retire, God forbid, and all these things might happen that way. So it's a big gamble, but look, Union are backing him, and they're going to re-sign him for $1 million a year for the next 3 years. Now, Jonathan Thurston's come out to the media today and yesterday as well, and has mentioned that he's weighing up an option to take the Cowboys' assistant coaching role, and just to help out the halves and help out the team in any way they can. JT is obviously a Cowboys legend and a legend of the NRL, and he's obviously seeing that the Cowboys have been struggling. So, at the moment, with all the other commitments he has to Channel 9 and the Cowboys, he's weighing up the option to coach the Cowboys, just their halves, and in any way he can help out the club. And the last bit of news, Jack Bird. He has actually been shopped to a few rival clubs. Dale Lockyer came out today and said it's up to Jack what he wants to do. But if he wants to go to another club where he can be surrounded by his friends and family in Sydney, he'll be happy to organise his release. Now, the 3 clubs that have already shown interest is his former club, the Cronulla Sharks, his junior club, the Dragons, and of course the Bulldogs. Now, there's already been preliminary discussions with the Bulldogs. Mal Mayo has come to me, and the Broncos are willing to pay $400,000 to $500,000 of his contract. Now, considering he's earning about $975 a year, or almost $1 million, it would mean the Bulldogs will have to pay out the other $500,000 for next year. It's all preliminary talks at the moment. Look, I think Jack Bird is very injury prone, and it's not his fault. Look, we've seen James Tedesco at one point was very injury prone, and he just changed the way he ran and changed a few things and killed it. So I'm sure Jack Bird will be looking to do the same thing, and I think he's still an acquisition for any other club. Now, I don't see him as a fullback. I don't see him as a 5'8", and I don't see him as a centre. If I was to be signing Jack Bird to my club, I would be bringing him at lock. I think he's got a massive build. I would put him in at lock, and I would use him for a good 50, 60, maybe even 80 minutes. I think his legs would be shot as well with the amount of reconstructions he's had to do. And I don't think he'd be as quick as he used to be. So, look, it's all rumours at the moment. But if I had to take Jack Bird at my club, I'll take him and put him straight at lock. So that's all the news around the NRL world. And we'll get straight on to the round that is round 11. Now, we have the Eels versus the Tigers, and there's a lot of changes in this week's team list, guys. So, stay tuned for the Eels. They get a major boost this week. They get Blake Ferguson, Mitchell Moses, and Ryan Madison all coming back into the starting side. Now, George Jennings, Jai Field, and David Gower have been pushed to the extended bench, and Brad Takairangi will come onto the bench in that last spot there for the Eels. The Tigers, Luke Garner is out due to foul at the HIA, and he is replaced by Michael Cheekham, and the only change for the Tigers. Now, Eels do have a full-strength squad, and Tigers have been really doing well in most recent times. I do see the Eels by 6. I can't see the Eels blowing them out with the way Tigers have been playing recently. So, it's going to be an interesting one. But, yeah, look, definitely Eels will take this one and get back to their winning ways, and they'll win it by 6. Now, the Cowboys will take on the Sea Eagles, and the Cowboys are 1-17. Now, they're not making any changes to the team from last week, while the Sea Eagles, Adam Fanua-Blake is back. He's actually been allowed to play this game, even though the Queensland government had that stance on the vaccinations. The NRL have found a loophole, and he's being available for selection this week. This will see Taniela Paseko go back to the bench, and Corey Widow drop to the reserves. And now for this game, I think Seagulls will take in a lot of confidence from that game against Para, and I reckon they'll go up to North Queensland and really put on a dominant performance. So I don't think it'll be a blowout either. I do see it being a close one. I'll say Seagulls by 10. Seagulls by 10 for this game. Now, the Friday night, Broncos take on the Storm out at Suncorp Stadium, and changes galore here. Finally, Anthony Seibold has woken up to himself here a little bit and has decided to make some changes. Not the changes that everyone would want to see, but he had to make some changes. So Anthony Milford has been moved from 5'8" to fullback to replace Tessie New, who has injured his wrist and will be out for some time at fullback, which will push Tom Dearden to the jersey 7 and Brodie Croft to number 6. Now, Katonia Staggs and Herbie Farnworth will be back at centre and wing, and they will take the place of Richie Kenner and Jermaine Asako, who have both been dropped for this game. Now, Corey Pay will replace Isaac Luke in the starting side, with Isaac Luke being suspended for a shoulder charge for this week. Now, Joe Offahengawi and Tavita Pangai Jr. will jump from bench and prop to second row, and they'll be replacing Corey Oates, who has been cleared of that serious leg injury, will only be out for 2 to 4 weeks, which is very good news, and Ben Teo, who was not great on Friday night. And which we'll see Thomas Flegler starting at prop in place of Tavita Pangai, and Reece Kennedy and Tyson Gamble will make his debut, and they will be on the bench for this game. So changes galore there at Brisbane. Now, the Storm are 1-17, and Suliasi Vunivalu is on an extended bench. So there's a chance he could come in for Brenko Lee or even Paul Momirovski this week. Now, about time Brisbane made some changes, and I can't see this going any other way but the Storm. I think it'll be another blowout game. I reckon Cameron Smith, Cameron Munster, Brendan Smith, Ryan Pappenhausen, even some of the backs there, Paul Momirovski, I reckon they'll be fantastic. I reckon they'll just destroy the Broncos again, and I'm looking at Storm by 20, 28 plus. I'm expecting a blowout for this game. So I don't see it getting any better for the Brisbane Broncos. Now, the Warriors will take on the Roosters. Now, Adam Pompey will replace Patrick Herbert, who came off for the HIA. Wade Egan is out, and he will be replaced by Carl Lawton. He's actually injured his hip. And Ignatius Parsi has played his last game for the Warriors before heading back to New Zealand. He's actually injured his shoulder. He'll be replaced by Jazz Tavaga. Now, Jack Hetherington will move from second row to prop. Elise Katoa will start in the second row, and Adam Blair will be benched for this game. And Shino Harris-Tavita and Lachlan Burr will take the last 2 spots there on the bench. So about that. Now, for the Roosters, Mitch Orbison will replace Angus Crichton, who's out for the next 3 to 6 weeks with that MCL sprain. Now, Nat Butcher is back this week. He will come back on the bench with Isaac Liu moving from the bench to the starting side. And Sia Takiaho will start, and Lindsay Collins will go back to the bench this week for the Chooks. And look, the Roosters, I don't see them losing 2 in a row, and they're only going to make it hell for the Warriors this year, and especially this game, sorry. So I do see another blowout game, and I think it'll be Roosters 20 plus for this one. Now, the Sharks will take on the Dragons in their little derby. The Sharks will have Toby Rudolph starting at lock for Scott Sorensen, who's injured his knee. CSC for Talakai, who's just recently re-signed with the club, will start, and he will be replacing Brighton Nikora, who is suspended. Now, Jack Williams and another debutant, Tage Wilton, will be on the bench for this game. While for the Dragons, Tyrell Fuimaono will start for Tariq Sims, who's been suspended for the shoulder charge on Kieran Foran, with Jacob Host moving on to the bench. Now, this game will be a tough one, but I do see Sharks by 8. I think Sharks are playing very good football at the moment, and I can't see them losing to the Dragons. But look, it'll be a tough game, and I reckon this will be won by the Sharks. The Raiders will take on the South Sydney Rabbitohs. With the Raiders, Jordan Rapana will now move to the centres for Michael Oldfield, who's injured his hamstring. And last week's debutant, Sammy Valemi, will move on to the wing. And another debutant, Harley Smith-Shields, will join the bench. And just be intrigued, guys. Keep an eye out for John Bateman, who's been named on an extended bench this week. Should be making his first appearance of the season to try and get the Raiders back into that top 4 contention. Now, for the Souths, they've lost James Roberts to a torn pec for the season, and Ethan Lowe due to neck injury, also out for the season. But they'll see Campbell Graham come back to replace James Roberts, and Bailey Sirinen will take the spot of Ethan Lowe in the starting side. And Jack Johns, the son of Matthew Johns, will make his debut in the forwards on jersey 17, and he's named on the bench. Now, for this game, after the way Raiders played last week and the way Souths played last week, I would think the Raiders, but this one could go down to the wire, but I still think the Raiders will get this one by 4. So it will be a very good game, probably the best game for the round, I reckon. Now, the Knights will be taking on the Bulldogs. Now, the Knights are 1-17 from last week, while the Bulldogs have made some more changes. Now, Jake Averillo is out of quarantine and we're now starting in the centres, pushing Marcelo Montoya onto the wing, and Christian Crichton dropped, thank goodness, about time. And Brendan Raken will replace Soaso Su on the bench. Now, we're due for a win, and I don't know if it'll be this week, with Ponga back to his best and with Bradman Best also playing well again, and the forwards and everyone just running like a well-oiled machine right now. It'd be very, very hard for the Bulldogs to win this. And you know me, guys, I'm not going to go against my team, so I'm going to stick with the Bulldogs again for this one. And for the last game of the round, the Titans will verse the Panthers. Now, the Titans, they'll have Dale Copley back in the side in the centres, pushing Philip Sammy to the ring and Tremaine Spry out of the side, while Kevin Proctor will replace Beau Firma. And for the Panthers, Caleb Aikens will replace Dylan Edwards, who has injured his hamstring. Brent Aiden will move into the centres for Dan Farre, who's injured his groin, with Malachi Martinez-Lesniak playing his first game of the year on the wing. Charlie Staines is still quarantined at the moment due to the events of last week. And Mitch Kenny will be starting for Apisai Coruscant, who has injured his elbow. There is no time frame at the moment as to how long he'll be out for, but it is a big loss for the Panthers. Regardless of that, I still think Panthers will win this game and win it comfortably. I still see him winning by 18, maybe even 20-odd points for this game as well. So, look, guys, thank you so much for your time this week. Do appreciate it. It was good to recap round 10 with you guys and get through round 11 and what's going to happen next. So, look, guys, as you all know, we are on Facebook, on League Chat with the Stat, as well as YouTube. Our podcasts get uploaded every single week, at least once a week, and you have all the information coming up with all the latest news in there. So make sure you tune in for Facebook. Make sure you're liking it, commenting on what your thoughts are during the week. Make sure that you are sharing this around on Facebook as well to all your friends to get the word spread out. And on YouTube as well, make sure you're liking, commenting, sharing, and subscribing to the channel. And click on that bell icon. Will notify you of when the video has uploaded. That way you can just watch it straight away. And as I said, I do thank you for joining me again for another week. That's all wrapped up. I'm looking forward to seeing you guys next week. Enjoy round 11. Take care.